Oh yeah, it's another video.
I guess the thing to understand is that there's like a poor tax. So it's not, not like normal taxes where it's put in by the government. It's more like a thing where, as a poor person, you have to pay more for things than rich people do just in day to day life. One of the classic examples is like, so you've just bought a car. I mean, the first step is that you have to pay for a cheaper car. You have to spend as little as you can instead of buying like, a mid-tier quality car, like a good sort of bang for your buck. Maybe spend 12 grand and get like a car that'll last you 20 years or something. You have to spend 3 grand or 5 grand and get a car that mightn't last as long, or you have to put more work into it, or you can spend more time hunting for a better car. But like, that's part of your life that you have to more of your life that you have to spend looking for a good quality car that you can afford. So then once you buy your car, it might need like maybe it needs 2 back tires to get it renewed. And if you buy 3 tires, you get the 4th one free. But like, that costs like $400 and something, whatever it costs. And so you can't really afford it. So you pay almost $300 for 2 tires when you could have had the others and then had spares sitting in a garage somewhere waiting. So there's like this additional tax there for being poor. You can't get the tire deal, so you miss out there. And it like continues on. You go to register the car, and the most expensive way, like, you can only the minimum thing you spend is like way less efficient than buying the maximum thing. So maybe you can get like 12 months rego and it costs, I don't know, $600, but then 6 months rego costs like $400 or whatever it is. So you end up paying more. And then if you can only pay monthly, maybe it costs like $80 a month, and so you're paying, I don't know, I didn't do the maths, but you're paying even more over the course of a year, whatever you pay per month. So these are ways that, like, if you're poor, it's harder to get unpoor. There's also the opposite. So like, if you spend, if you're like a regular customer at certain places and spend a certain amount of money, you get extra bonuses and extra privileges. I mean, maybe everybody wants to spend like, $100 or $200 a week on groceries. Maybe people want to do that sort of stuff, but they're too poor, so they scrimp and they save, and then they don't get like they don't get reward points, or they don't get the deals that come up if you spend over $150 or something. Then you've got other things, like, if you're poor, you probably don't have space to have a chest freezer. You probably just have a single fridge, or maybe even just a small fridge. And so if there's a special on, you can't buy like 8 kilos of mints and put it in your freezer because you don't have the space. Or if you do, you're having mints for the rest of, like, for the next 2 weeks or whatever it is. So, and that's a suffrage upon you, like, not being able to have variety. It means that you'll probably end up spending money elsewhere on other food when you still have cheap mints in the fridge because you're sick of it because you've had it so much, whereas a richer person could afford to store it. So there are a lot of sort of of these hidden costs that apply if you're poor. It's not hard to think of them and notice them. I mean, like, even things like getting loans, if you want to get a loan to start a business and you're poor, it's very hard. But if you want to get a loan to start a business and you're rich, well, that's a lot easier. And it doesn't matter. It could be the same business and you could have the same skills. You could just be rich because your parent just passed away and now you have $5 million and you want to invest in whatever it is and buy a business or start a business. It'd be easier to get a loan. So there's a lot of things that through no fault of anybody, except the drive to make more profit, is like you miss out. So the drive, and what I mean is, like, if people weren't trying to squeeze every dollar, for example, out of the cost of tires and get the maximum price they can out of every tire, they wouldn't be able to do something like buy 3, get 1 free, right? They can afford to do that because tires are so expensive in the first place, and it just incentivizes people not to spend a smaller amount on 2, but rather get 3 and then get the 4th one free. It's just, it seems like a win-win, except what could actually be happening is the price of tires could be cheaper. It could be reasonable so that people can get it. It could be fair. And then there could also be incentives for poor people, especially, like you be able to get things on loan maybe. That sort of stuff does exist, but it's very predatory. They again are trying to make profits instead of trying to like help people afford to buy tires. So you could imagine there could be some other way that could be done. That would be a different conversation, I guess. But the poor tax is a very obvious thing that pretty much everybody notices to some degree, and it's increasingly bad the poorer you are, and so you can get into ideas of poverty cycles where people can't recover. Like a car breaks down, you can't get to work, you can't afford to fix it because you're poor, so maybe you get a loan to fix your car, now you're paying off debts, and then you got the cheapest repair you could because you couldn't afford to get a better one, so then a different part of your car breaks, or now a tire goes and you can only afford to fix one, or you can't afford to fix any, and then you're losing out. How do you get to work? It becomes more expensive if you have to get an Uber or something because there's not a cheap public transport in the area, which is the case for a lot of people, especially as sort of you get this sort of split between workplaces and where you live. Like, especially poor people can often work in industrial areas or doing labouring jobs in multiple areas, so not being able to get around could be much worse than if a rich person can't get around. Even if they can't afford to fix their car, they can pay for an Uber, they can probably work from home depending on their job, but most jobs that pay well, you can usually do from home, at least maybe for a little bit, or you could just afford to miss work for a little bit and it wouldn't ruin your life. You wouldn't have issues with feeding your family and having the emotional issues that arise from all that. So there's a lot of places where the poor tax can be seen and or felt. It's an interesting thing to think about, maybe.
Like and subscribe.